Alright, so the first part to this guide is to set your mouse to 400 DPI. It's important that you do because that's the base that we want to work off of. And 400 DPI tracks in steps, where it's not as linear as a higher DPI. And you want that to be able to hit more frequent headshots, especially in a game like Counter-Strike. So make sure you're set at 400 DPI. Now the reason I'm not showing you how to do this is because it varies from mouse to mouse. You know, they have a ton of different manufacturers. However, if you have any sort of gaming mouse, you're gonna have software that comes with it, and it'll allow you to set it to 400, 800, 1200. I think some mice go all the way up to 12,000 DPI nowadays, but there's no need for that. You want to set it to the 400 DPI. And the next step is going to go to have you go to escape, go to your settings cog, go to keyboard and mouse, go to raw input, make sure that's on. That way we're not getting any input from the operating system itself. You're getting everything directly from the mouse. And then mouse acceleration, make sure that's off because this game requires a lot of flicking and you don't want it to vary depending on the speed that you're moving your mouse around. So you want to make sure mouse acceleration is off. That way it's static and it's consistent every single time. Now let's debunk a couple of the methods that people use to try and supposedly find their sensitivity. One of them is they'll take their mouse pad, which varies by the manufacturer, of course, and they'll say, well, your sensitivity is good as long as you can do a 360 on it. So go from side to side and make sure you can do a 360. You're tailoring your sensitivity to your mouse pad. That makes zero sense. You want to tailor your sensitivity to yourself. So don't do that. The reason I'm on Dust 2 and on this part of the map is because another formula people use is they'll shoot a couple rounds, make it the size of a head, and they'll say whatever sensitivity you can track at the best, that's where your dexterity's at, and that's what sensitivity you should be using. It's wrong because you're gonna need a different amount of input from way back here than you are up here. If you're an entry fragger, you're gonna want to be able to track from way up here. If you're more of a support player, you're gonna want to be back here, right? And everybody's gonna do this test differently. Some people might stand over here and they'll be like, oh look, that's my perfect sensitivity. It's not right. Okay, so how do we find our sensitivity? Well, you have to understand these two concepts. You have to understand that a higher sensitivity equals better movement, a lower sensitivity equals better aim. Now what we're playing here is Counter-Strike, and obviously there's a lot of factions to this game. It's a really complicated esport, but aim is king on most matchmaking servers and ESEA, stuff like that, right? So relative to most gamers, Counter-Strike players play on pretty low sensitivities. Again, because aim matters. Now, it's not the only thing that matters. If that was the case, you'd see a bunch of players be playing at 400 DPI at one in-game sense, leaving you at a 400 effective DPI. Reason people don't do that is because if you're going to go an entry frag somewhere and you got to clear out of sight, it's really hard to have to swipe your mouse around like that in order to complete that. And even then, you're going to get caught off guard by not being able to flick up towards somebody. You're checking this, it's pretty hard to flick. Now let me back these theories up a little bit. The reason 99% of pros use large mouse pads like this is because it gives you more surface to track on, more movement, and it allows you to play at a lower sensitivity. The reason light mice are boasted about in the FPS community, like my little Nixius Rebel here, is because it allows you to swing the mouse around much easier while playing at a low sensitivity. So movement, it gives you more movement at a lower sensitivity for better aim. Lower sensitivity is better aim. Higher sensitivity is better movement. So you have to find a balance between the two. Now, how do you do that? Well, you have to, dig pretty deep. All right, so how do we find our sensitivity? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Lower it until you're comfortable with your aim, of course. Maybe not down to 1, but if that's all you can aim on, well, you have pretty low dexterity, and you know, some people naturally do. So you'll be more of a support player, you know, using nades and stuff like that rather than a fast player. But anyhow, you want to basically play on the lowest sensitivity you can while still having decent movement. The way we're going to figure this out is by using increments of 0.5. So we'll start off at 1. Anything lower than that's pretty absurd. So you're at 400 effective DPI here. You swing around. It's too hard to clear. Let's go up to 1.5. And look to the left. You can look to the right. A little easier. It's still a little tough. I'll go up to 2. That's pretty easy. Could even go up to 2.5. You know, that's really easy. However, 2 was viable. And I've used this 2.5 sensitivity for, I don't know, 500 hours. And I noticed that my aim was lacking. So I turned it down. And my movement's still just as good. And my aim has improved. You're gonna have to be pretty honest with yourself to figure out what it is you're lacking, whether that's aim or movement. Try lower sensitivities, and you'll see that your aim gets much better, and then you'll see that your movement may be lacking. And then go up from there. Like I said, the goal is to find the lowest sensitivity where movement is good, because aim is a priority in this game. Now, up to this point, we've been using increments of 0.5. In order to make it a little neater, you can start using increments of 1.75. Or, I'm sorry, 0.25. So, we were sitting at 1.5 at one point, and we said, this is almost okay. Well, and I can tell you at 1.5, my aim sits pretty good, but my movement, of course, lacks. 2 seemed just fine. So we're going to try something a little lower than 2, 1.75, and see how that feels. So, able to move around, and I'm able to track pretty well with that sensitivity. So that's my sensitivity, okay? And of course I made it a little neater than that. I liked it between 1.75 and 2. So what I play with is actually 1.87. And that's how you should find your sensitivity. Prioritize aiming, but again, you want to be able to move. Want to be able to, you know, clear out those spaces, stuff like that. From there, once you're completely comfortable with your sensitivity, leave it there. Muscle memory is a heck of a thing. Change around the keybinds on your keyboard, and it'll take you a week to get used to them. Same thing with your mouse. You change your sensitivity around too much, it's going to be really hard to get used to it. So find whatever the lowest sensitivity where you can clear things out and stick with it. And you'll hone in on those skills, and you'll become a better Counter-Strike player. So best of luck to you guys. If you found this video useful, subscribe or don't. I'm not a beggar.